For my assembly today, I'd like to talk to you about a special time that's coming up for Christians. I'm going to show you some pictures and I wonder if you can guess what that special time is. Yeah, it wasn't hard, was it? It's Easter. The Easter story, though, is quite a long one. It lasts a whole week. It's not just the story of one day. Today, I want to share with you the story of Holy Week. That's what Christians call the week leading up to Easter Sunday. I want to start with the story of Palm Sunday. That's the Sunday before Easter. And churches often give out palm crosses like this one on Palm Sunday. I wonder if you can guess why when you've listened to the story. If the Queen was coming to your school, I wonder what you'd all do. You might line up to welcome her. You might wave flags. You might make banners. You might shout out. You'd be really excited. She's a very important lady. Well, that's what the crowds were like in Jerusalem on that very first Palm Sunday. The crowds had gathered in Jerusalem for a special festival called Passover, and the place was heaving. There were people everywhere. And they'd heard that a very important man was coming, Jesus. They heard he was coming into the city, and they'd heard stories about all these amazing things he'd been doing. So they gathered on the streets, and they got really excited, chatting to one another. And then someone spots him in the distance. And he's riding on a donkey, and they get so excited, they shout, "Hosanna!" And they want to wave something. So they pull some branches from the palm trees and they wave them in the air. They even put their coats on the floor. It kind of makes a carpet for the donkey to ride on. But some of the temple people, some of the religious leaders, they weren't happy to see Jesus. They thought that he was causing trouble. My palm cross reminds me of the people waving their palm branches for Jesus. And it also makes me think, how do I show people that being a friend of Jesus is really exciting? The next bit of the story is about a special meal. If someone you knew was going to move house and move away or leave your school, you might have a special meal with them before they went. Well, this bit of the story happens on Maundy Thursday, 4 days after Jesus arrived in Jerusalem. So everybody was gathered for that special festival of Passover. And Jesus and his friends went to a room to have the special Passover meal together. But at the end of the meal, Jesus did something a bit different. He took some bread, a bit like this bread, and as he ripped it, he said, "This bread is like my broken body. When you eat bread, remember me." And then he took some wine and he said, "This is like my blood poured out. When you drink wine, remember me." Well, his friends were a bit confused. They didn't really know what he meant, why he kept saying, "Remember me." Well, he was right there. Of course they would remember him. But they could tell it was a special time. Lots of Christians have services with bread and wine in their churches to remember that meal on Maundy Thursday that we sometimes call the Last Supper. And it helps them to remember Jesus. Well, the next bit of the story is the sad bit. Those people who were shouting Hosanna on Palm Sunday have started to change their minds about Jesus. The religious leaders have got them thinking that maybe Jesus is causing trouble. And they're thinking that maybe they want to get rid of him. So the Romans, who were in charge, listened to what the religious leaders were saying about Jesus, and they decided that Jesus had to die. Even the crowds had changed their minds. But Jesus hadn't actually done anything wrong. They took him away to a hill and they crucified him. They hung him on a big wooden cross and they left him there until he died. At the moment when he died, the sky went black, even though it was daytime. Jesus' friends cried. They thought this was the end of the story. They took his body down and they put it in a cave, which is what they did with bodies in those days. And they rolled a massive stone in front of the cave, over the entrance, and then they went home. A cross is the most important symbol for Christians. It reminds them of this bit of the story and of what comes next. The day Jesus died, we call Good Friday. Doesn't sound very good, does it? Maybe Bad Friday or Sad Friday would be a better name. But it's called Good Friday because of how the story ends. I don't know if you'll have any Easter eggs this year. I've got one on my table here. It's for my daughter Amelia. It's a white Oreo one. Oh, it looks good, doesn't it? Some people think that we have Easter eggs at Easter because the egg is shaped a little bit like the massive stone that they rolled in front of the cave. So let's get to the end of the story. Jesus had arrived in Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. He'd had a special meal with his friends on Thursday. He'd died on Friday and been put in a cave. On Saturday, all of his friends stayed at home because Saturday is the special day for the Jewish people and they weren't allowed to do any work. So now we come to Sunday. On Sunday, one of Jesus' friends called Mary went to the cave. When she got there, she was shocked. The stone had moved. It wasn't in front of the cave anymore. But how could that have happened? It was massive. It was heavy. It was impossible to move. She peeped into the cave. There was no body. She burst out crying. Who could do such a mean thing and move Jesus' body? Then she heard a voice. Mary, said the voice. She looked round. She thought it was the gardener. Mary, why are you crying? Said the voice. And when she looked up, it was Jesus. He wasn't dead anymore. She was shocked. She was amazed. She couldn't really believe her eyes. It was him. Jesus told Mary to run away and tell all the disciples what had happened, all of his friends the great news. And that's how this part of the story ends. It's quite an amazing ending, isn't it? It's hard to believe. Jesus' friends couldn't believe it at first. But that's why Good Friday is called good, because we know how the story ends. Christians believe that Jesus dying and coming back to life means that God forgives all the mistakes we make and means that we can be friends with God. So it's definitely a time for celebrating and eating Easter eggs. In the quiet, I just want you to think about the story. Think about any questions you might have or your favourite bit. Think about what Easter means to you. So let's just have a moment's quiet. And I'll end with a prayer. Loving God, thank you for times of celebration and fun. Help us to remember in the holidays, when we eat our chocolate eggs and spend time with our families, the reason Easter is such a special time. Amen. Bye for now.